The fire crackled softly beneath a sky full of quiet stars. There were 5 of them, gathered in a familiar circle, the same way they had done countless times before, though back then it had been sticks and stolen bread instead of enchanted steel and hard-earned supplies. Kale leaned back against a mossy stone, hands behind his head, staring up at the sky. "You ever think about how we ended up here?" he asked, his voice low, almost blending with the wind drifting through the trees. Mira smiled faintly as she stirred a pot hanging over the fire. "You mean how a bunch of reckless kids somehow didn't get themselves killed before adulthood?" "I was not reckless," Dane muttered from the other side of the fire, carefully polishing his sword. "I was ambitious." Lisa laughed softly, the sound light and warm. "You tried to fight a river once." "It looked shallow." "It was spring melt," Kyle added, grinning. Dine sighed, but even he couldn't hide the small smile tugging at his lips. Silence settled in after that. Not uncomfortable, but familiar. The kind that only came from years of knowing one another too well to need constant words. Beyond the firelight, the forest stretched wide and calm. Their camp sat on a gentle hill overlooking a valley where faint lights from a distant village flickered like grounded stars. Tomorrow they would head there. Another job. Another story. Another step forward in lives that had somehow grown bigger than any of them had imagined as children. But tonight was just theirs. Lisa lay back on her bedroll, hands folded over her chest as she gazed upward. "Remember the hill behind Kale's house?" she asked quietly. "The one we said was our lookout post." Kale chuckled. It was barely a bump in the ground. "It was a mountain to us," Mira said. "And we swore," Lisa continued, her voice softening, "that one day we'd see real mountains, real ruins, real magic." Dung finally set his sword aside. "We've done all that." "Yeah," Kale said, glancing around at the others. "We have." There was something gentle in the way he said it. Not pride exactly, but something quieter. Something steadier. Mira handed out bowls of warm stew, and they ate slowly, savoring both the food and the moment. No rush. No danger pressing in. Just the soft hum of night wrapping around them like a blanket. A breeze passed through, carrying the scent of pine and distant water. "Funny thing," Mira said after a while. "Back then, I thought the adventures were the important part. And now?" Lisa asked. Mira looked around the circle, the worn armor, the tired eyes, the familiar faces lit gold by firelight. "Now I think it was always this." Kale raised an eyebrow. "Sitting around, doing nothing." "Being together," she corrected gently. Dane gave a small nod. "The battles, the treasure, they pass. This doesn't." For a moment, no one spoke. The fire popped, sending a small swirl of sparks drifting up into the night, disappearing among the stars. Kyle closed his eye, listening to the quiet breathing of his friends, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of some night creature. The world felt vast. Yes, but not lonely. Not anymore. "Hey," he said softly without opening his eyes. "When we're old, we're still doing this, right?" "Camping in the woods?" Don asked dryly. "Together?" Kale replied. Lisa smiled, eyes half-lidded with sleep. "Of course." Mira nodded, setting her empty bowl aside. "Some promises don't fade." Dine lay back, folding his arms behind his head. "Then I suppose I'll tolerate all of you for a few more decades." Kale snorted. Generous. The laughter that followed was quiet, tired, and warm. One by one, they settled in. Blankets pulled close, weapons within reach out of habit more than necessity. The fire burned lower, its glow softening into embers. Above them, the stars stretched endlessly. Below them, the world waited for morning. But in that small circle of fading light, time seemed to slow, just enough to let them rest, not as adventurers, not as legends, but simply as friends who had kept a childhood promise. And as sleep gently took them, the night held them close, peaceful and still, as if it too knew. This was the real treasure they had been searching for all along.